Thank you very much. Well, I'm sure you all know Alexander Armstrong and Ben Miller, having seen them on television or heard them on the radio. They have been a comedy duo since meeting at university nearly 20 years ago, and although they do go off and do their own thing from time to time, acting, and Ben's been directing a film recently, Xander was seriously tempted after being headhunted to replace Carol Vorderman on Countdown. Fortunately for us, they have stuck together. You probably know them best from their BBC sketch show. The third series is currently running on a Saturday night, complete with many of the much-loved characters, such as the two World War II RAF pilots who say "in it" in a posh way, the accident-prone historian, the two Stone Age men who have to deal with modern problems, like how to deal with sulky teenagers, one of my favourite sketches, and Brabbins and Fife, the two musicians who sing very filthy songs, which must have given some poor BBC executives near heart attacks. Armstrong and Miller are now a multimedia comedy empire, in fact. Apart from the TV series, they have DVDs. They've just finished a live tour, podcasts, the book, which is a sort of annual, very funny, and the app. So that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. Let's start, and we're going to show you some sketches as well. Let's start, first of all, with the two pilots, because everyone loves those, don't they? I mean, how did you get the idea for these street-talking pilots?
I'm ashamed to say that the short answer to that is an excellent writer called Simon Blackwell presented us with the prototype pilot sketch. Of course, it was a very drab and flimsy thing on the paper. And it wasn't until you and I breathed some life into it, was it, Ben? It was appalling. Really, very sad. And the pair of us just brought it to life, didn't we?
Did you have to practice a lot?
By reading it,
quite
brought
difficult.
it to life.
The language is incredibly hard. They're very hard sketches to learn. And when we did them at the Royal Variety Show a couple of years ago. And I think it's no exaggeration to say it took us about 2 weeks to learn that script. I mean, that was about 10 minutes long. 10 minutes, a bit less than that. 7 minutes, let's say.
Going on for, I think it
But
was,
it's like speaking, I mean, it's a bit like learning, if we had to make a speech in Welsh, say.
It's harder than that.
And didn't have Welsh, we would have to learn it phonetically, obviously, and you just...
And also with a weird accent, because you're not doing it in the accent, you're not speaking the language in the accent that it's supposed to be spoken in.
Exactly that, yeah.
Loving your use of have Welsh there.
I don't have Welsh.
I don't have Welsh. No, I don't have Welsh.
No.
I have very little Welsh.
Tiny.
I have had very little Welsh. Yes. Anyway, sorry.
Well, look, I think just to get us in the mood, and for those of you who don't know the pilots, let us see our first clip. There is actually a sound pad I noticed on the app where you can you can send people comments from the pilots.
Abuse people. Yeah, you can abuse your loved ones.
Through the good offices of the pilots. Yes, we just recorded lots of different things for every occasion.
Yeah. Yes.
Can you have it as a ringtone then and things like that?
I guess you probably could. Yes.
I wouldn't know how you did that, but yes, I think I think it's. So there's sort of birthday messages, all that kind of stuff. Congratulations on your exams, that kind of thing. You as an utter remtard, that kind of.
Well, I tried out the game. There's a pilot's game, and when you fail to hit your target, in fact, we can see a little bit of what it looks like. It insults you.
Yeah.
It called me a gaylord.
Well, you is a colossal game. Didn't like to draw attention to it, all this, but there we are.
Yeah, let's just see just a tiny bit of that.
Firstly, you've got to judge the wind speed. This is where you need to land. Standard. Tap to jump out the plane. You remtard. Tap again to deploy your chute. Boom ting. You has no special needs. It's quite windy, so don't be a remtard or anything. You's like landed, isn't it? It's reasonably windy, man, isn't it? Isn't it, though?
Well, I think that gives us an idea.
Yes. So
and clearly you're better at it than I am, because you didn't get called a gaylord.
We just recorded hours and hours of those. I mean, there's just endless
amounts of
just abusing people. My favourite one is, that was a really bad score. You was lucky to even have a phone.
It's averagely windy, bit like my nan.
Now, the latest Armstrong and Miller show has some new characters in it, like vampires, which are very fashionable at the moment. Are you trying to take on Twilight?
We are. We think we've got the edge on them. It'll never take off, this Twilight thing. No, yes. We have these characters who are like sort of old school vampires. One is a sort of Christopher Lee kind of character, and another one is sort of slightly...
Gary Oldman.
Yes, Gary Oldman, basically. I was trying to find a way to sort of...
I see, sorry. Or was it Kim or Aggie? I forget, one of the two.
Yeah, I was sort of trying to find a way to sort of, not, encourage some kind of libel suit. But yeah, basically it's Gary Oldman from Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula with his sort of incredible kind of ice cream, Elnet-infested... hairdo, yeah.
So it's getting vampires back to basics, isn't it? Away from these
it's back to
teen,
what they were always about, vampires. The old vampires, the vampires that we grew up with. Apart from else, they had fangs over here, not here. That's wrong.
Yeah.
They couldn't go out in the daylight. There were all sorts of rules. They had rules.
Well, they were vampires.
Yes, they were vampires.
They were vampires.
Whereas the Twilight vampires They just don't play the game.
They just wear a bit of eyeliner, as far as I can see. I don't think there's anything.
I like the way they always comment on how people taste. So there's one sketch where they're in this tattoo parlour, and they end up eating the tattooist, and sort of and make some comment about him having eaten too much sort of
scampy knickknacks.
Scampy knickknacks.
Yeah. Which is, if you've ever eaten them, is a very particular kind of.
In
tattooist.
fact, we can see the vampires. And do you want to just talk us into this particular sketch?
So I think they're trying to get women. They're always trying to get women.
They've been trying to get women for a long time, and they've been promised they might meet some virgins at this particular venue.
Thank you.
I've noticed that Vickers are quite a big inspiration in your comedy, because in the book there's lots of sort of adverts for Vickers, a bit like those adverts you see in phone boxes for ladies of the night.
Yeah.
So, this one, forgive me, Father, quick, 30-second confessions with a real priest, discreet and private, mature action, etc., gagging for your attention. I mean, presumably there's a whole bunch of things you can do with a book, of course, and with an app that you can't do with a sketch.
Well, that's right. I mean, the book, just because we had in one of the shows in the last series, we had a series of ads, didn't we, for Vicar chat lines.
Yes, Church Match Mobile.
Church Match Mobile.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's just a sort of, that's our book version of that. I mean, it's just that, you can just take things a bit further. I guess also with the pilots, we could do a comic strip with them, which we haven't. We just, you can actually put them up in the dogfights above the South Downs, which you just can't have.
Have we got the book? Can I just have a little? I'm very proud of this comic strip, actually, which is what we actually managed to find an artist who drew these sort of pictures of the pilots, like those
so
warlord type books. We called it Warmonger. We've got this sort of fantastic, really authentic looking kind of drawings that kind of really, and as Zander was saying, the thing about the sketch is it's quite often just the pilot's just talking to somebody, whereas in the comic strip we actually had sort of all kinds of expensive shenanigans. I mean, look, he's holding a Bakelite telephone there. They don't come cheap. But there's nearly 10 actors would be involved in that, in recreating that.
Never been able to afford that.
Just Tom Basden is basically as much as the budget runs to. But and we've got dogfights and stuff in there, and it goes all the way through the book.
So you can do all sorts of things that the pilots couldn't normally do
exactly.
on the BBC budget. And do you invent new characters because you get bored of the old ones?
I think partly, yeah.
I think you run out of things for old ones to do, really. I mean, the last series, we took a few liberties with the pilots. We had them in... Well, we had them in the Normandy landings, for example, which...
refusing to get off the boat?
Yeah. But yes, pilots. I don't know what pilots were doing there, but there we are. We've also got them in... We've got them in Burma as well, haven't we?
Yeah.
Working on the railway. So yes, we just had a bit of... Slightly took them out of their piloting. But there we are.
No one really complained about that, which
I know. I'm amazed. No
amazed me that nobody really
picked us up on that.
Yeah.
I want to ask about Bravins and Fife, who are the two sort of filthy songsters. Tell us first of all where they came from.
It sort of came. There's a writer called Jeremy Dyson who is one of the writers of the League of Gentlemen, and we've been working with Jeremy all the way through our 3 series. And I think one of the very first meetings we had with him, and he said, "You're like sort of." He was trying to sort of pigeonhole us, I suppose, slightly, and he was kind of thinking. He said, "You remind me of a really outdated English musical act." He said. And in particular, he was reminded of this duo, Flanders and Swan, who we also happen to be big fans of. And one of the things that it just seemed so English, the idea that you had these pair of gents, one of them in a sort of wheelchair, which I don't think any other country in the world would have a sort of a kind of popular media star in a wheelchair. It seemed sort of very sort of British, and without too much difficulty, we found that we were sort of in that mould. Do you know what I mean?
So you did the comic songs, but did them sort of ultra filthy, so to speak.
They're sort of Frogs and Swans alter egos, and certainly in the first series, all their songs ended with the plug being pulled as they just got to the bit where suddenly they thought, we can't broadcast this. So, yes, they would finish usually with a sort of test card.
And has that ever happened to you that the BBC has said, no, look, lads, that's just too filthy?
Yes, but we've never been surprised. I think that's...
Do you try and sort of push the envelope occasionally?
Always. Yes, but they've given us a very free hand, actually. We've been remarkably lucky. The BBC,
yeah.
I mean, they don't really meddle that much. I mean, even now, actually, with the last couple of years, obviously, comedy has been very tightly controlled. Actually, even allowing for that climate, we've been remarkably lucky.
Because you've got a specially commissioned song, I think, on the app. Which can we just hear a little bit of that?
The child upstairs was bawling. It was 10:05 one morning. I was trying to wedge a kipper on some toast. I was feeling pretty maudlin. Then, without a breath of warning, I got a massive stiffy in the post. When I tore apart the casing, a card within was waiting with some lines of snappish prose addressed to me. They said,
Teddy Fife at home, for God's sake come alone, for a night you'll not forget RSVP.
Well, to read that gothic swirl sent my mind into a whirl, stirred up my blood like staring into the abyss. You see, the party's not a milieu with which Teddy Fife's familiar. This was one event I simply couldn't miss. I arrived at 8:30.
Nobody died.
Princess Margaret was sick on the gate.
Nobody died.
Vodka fountains, wild boars, half-naked girls, men on all fours.
I had a brief chat with Diana.
And so on, it gets much dirtier, so I thought I'd cut it off. Talking about new characters, there's one character that I really like in the new TV series, who's this British expat living in Paris, who pretends he's sort of gone native. What was the inspiration for that?
That's based on a real person, actually, that you met, didn't you?
I met in Paris, who'd lived there for all of 3 months, I think, and had just... You come across these people, and particularly in places like Paris, had just decided that he'd forgotten he was English, and his usage had gone off French. And he'd be talking, he'd say, bref, qu'est-ce qu'on s'appelle? He was asking about theatre in London. He said, of course, there is great theatre. You have great theatre in London. What do you mean, you? You're part of... Anyway, you have great theatre in London. They have the Théâtre National, the National Theatre. You tit.
So you've just taken this bloke verbatim and stuck him on the screen?
Exactly. No.
You sending the DVD yet? No?
Not yet, no.
I think his name was actually Simpkins, just like the guy in the sketch. It's pretty...
Hilarious.
It's a pretty blunt instrument, really.
What other characters have you got that have actually come from real people that you've met?
I think most of them sort of come from real people one way or another, because you're sort of always picking up on... You're usually trying to channel someone, aren't you?
Lifted directly. Quite often you'll take a little bit of one person, a little bit of someone else. I mean, it's usually when you start... we try and get the characters off the page as quickly as possible. So we do read-throughs, not read-throughs, we do tryouts in front of a live audience, just to try and encourage us to vocalise them and try and sort of, and you end up some weeks later you've sort of arrived at a character that has all sorts of, it's very much its own personality. It's weird. I mean, you sort of store things up from people. I mean, we do quite often talk a lot. I mean, when we're writing, we do sit and talk a lot about people we've met, and oh my God, I just met this person, you wouldn't believe it, and that just goes into the larder, really.
What about your ladies who run a lingerie shop in the new series? Tell us about them.
Jeremy Dyson's wife had gone to a agent provocateur shop in Leeds and had just reported gleefully back that there were these two women who ran it, who were in middle to late middle age, who just disapproved of everything. They were unpacking a box at the time, I think, and just going, yeah. I mean, why would you buy that? Why would you buy those? What's the point of them?
Yeah. That 2 bottle tops and a cork.
That's it. Yes. Not for the faint-hearted, these knickers. I tried them knickers on when I walked around. It looked like Chewbacca trying to get out of a hammock.
In fact, I think we can see the two ladies now.
Oh, I love these two.
Are there any plans for an Armstrong and Miller lingerie range?
We did try and sell some pants, didn't we, on our tour?
We did, on our tour. I think we sold 3 pairs.
We did. Yeah. All to the man who ran the stall.
Yeah.
What did they have? They were large. They were big pants, were they? Like that?
They were quite big pants.
They were nice. The Boudoir d'Amour with the logo.
They're still available online, I believe.
Yeah.
If anyone's short of a stocking filler.
I mean, all great British comedians have to, at some point, get dressed up in drag. It's almost obligatory, isn't it, really?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I must say, we haven't done nearly enough of that in the past. Actually, I was so pleased.
You enjoy it,
I really enjoy it. I found it...
We're doing it on tour. It was
really fun.
It was the biggest, it was the wildest sketch of the night. It's something... You can get away with murder. Yeah. It's extraordinary in drag. You get the really best of all worlds, don't you?
And I did find the high heels very empowering. And also being a slightly stroppy woman is just very, it's very rewarding in its own way.
Yeah.
The sneer is fantastic. Yeah. I read a newspaper article which quoted you, Ben, as saying that Alexander had the campest stag night you'd ever been to, and that you spent the evening eating fairy cakes. Is this true?
This just gets embellished every time. What happened, right? I'm just going to butt in here, if I may. What we did on my stag weekend, for 1 hour on the Saturday morning.
You be the judge.
Was we made the wedding cake. The stags made the wedding cake. We brought in Clarissa Dixon Wright to come and She is no relation. Exactly. She's turned into my sister. She's practically my mum. So this got it so bad. Do you really want to know how I'm related to Clarissa Dixon Wright? She's
her cousin.
No, she's not even. She's a sister-in-law, but not of a half sister of my uncle's on the other side of the family. She lives.
I don't think there's any way out of this, Anna. I'm sorry, but making fairy cakes on a stag weekend.
We didn't make fairy cakes. Fairy cakes. We made the wedding cake.
We did ice the wedding cake.
We iced the wedding cake, and it was hilarious, and you really enjoyed it. Anyway, next time I read this, it's going to be that we. No, I don't know. We spun sugar or something.
I read there were pink fairy cakes, but anyway, that's
yeah.
Now it says on the front of your book, anyone fancy a threesome?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I was wondering if you could explain that to me.
Well,
go on, Ben.
No, it's a thing. It's like a running.
It's a thing that intrigues you.
It is.
Yeah. Some of our writers' meetings, you wonder if we shouldn't all be lying on couches, or at least one of us. The things that I've been privy to that's come out of Miller's mind on the context of threesomes. Anyway, sorry. Anyway, I interrupt.
Yeah. It's a running gag throughout the sketch, isn't it? So you've got you've got a sort of new age dad, not new age, but it's sort of a new dad, hands on
I just think any time a man is in the company of two women, at some point he thinks of having a threesome with them. I just think whatever the situation, it can be a funeral, it can be Be
Only
there
Ben,
a naming day.
He doesn't vocalise. He never says, or even talk about it later in front of people.
I just think that's a sort of eternal, kind of truth.
So you're just weighing up now as you're surveying the
Looking
shop
around
floor.
at the blank expressions in front of me.
There's another running gag that going throughout the new series, which is about you'll be on the point, it'll be a funeral or people having sex or whatever, and suddenly they'll remember to take the rubbish out.
Yeah.
See, how did that?
We are at the mercy of our council and their collections. I mean, that's
Yeah.
it, and you always forget, and it's just the biggest pain in the arse if you haven't taken the bins out. So,
My council collects. Can we just? This is a bit of therapy. My council collects 3 days a week.
What?
On Tuesday.
Really? Where do you live? I'm moving there.
They collect Tuesdays,
you don't have to worry.
Fridays,
Yeah.
and Saturdays. No, but each day they collect a different thing. On Tuesday they collect the recycling, but not the rubbish. On a Friday they'll collect rubbish and recycling, and on a Saturday they'll collect recycling. So you're constantly running down with a bag, and it's the wrong bag, running back upstairs, forgetting to take it out. Literally any day, every day, practically every day of the week, I run down with one of the bags because the chances are that there'll be a lorry outside. And I just think everybody sort of lives with this kind of tyranny of there's no way to get rid of your rubbish unless you actually get it down to the truck. So you literally do find yourself sort of, listening to choral evening song, in Westminster Abbey or something, and going, oh, fuck, the fucking rubbish, it's fucking Thursday. Oh, shit! It's just that kind of, I don't know, it seems designed to do that, designed so you could never remember when to put it out. So I'll just stop talking, shall I?
I think now you've got that off your
I
chest.
do think, though, that something that really annoys you is a really good basis for a sketch, actually. It's a really good place. If you can take some kind of sort of thumping irritation that you feel about something in your life.
So do you walk into a writing meeting and say, God, this really annoying thing happened to me today, and try and see if you can work that into a sketch?
Yes.
Yeah, quite often it doesn't end up as a sketch.
They're usually sort of things that are quite hard to put your finger on. There was one recurring bugbear of yours particularly, but which we've sort of addressed in the book, which is that kind. It's when products try to be your friend.
Oh God!
That thing where you just get where people usually in a quite sort of babyish, sort of Purple Ronnie way.
Give us a call on the banana phone.
Yes, like
No,
we'd like to.
You're a massive company. You're a huge corporation.
Multinational corporation. Stop talking to us like we're children, or like your children and our friends.
Don't try and be my friend.
Yeah, there's a thing for bleach called Bleachy. It's a Bleachy, and
it's a friendly
bleach where we looked up in the big book of bleach how to make bleach like Mummy used to make it.
Yeah.
There's a certain smoothie company that springs to mind. They always write like that in the back of their things. Yeah. I mean, it's fun for the first minute.
One of my favourite bits of the book, and this is something you can't do anywhere else, is the illustrated edition of The Joy of Sex with Fruit and Veg.
Who says you can't do that anywhere else?
Well, I mean,
come on now.
Well, I couldn't do it as a BBC sketch, could you?
There is a particularly graphic.
I just can't look at a celery stick again after reading it.
They're beautifully done. There's the illustrations. They're sort of perfectly copied from the Alex Comfort book.
Drawn by I had a fabulous designer for this book, a guy called Tim Barnes, who's done this sort of glorious thing of on every page is sort of kind of like, he's just kind of always gone to the trouble of recreating the context of what it is. So here's a kind of Crank-style cookery book with our vegetarian characters. But his wife, Catherine, as the deadline loomed, was roped in. And the one thing that he hadn't finished were these joy of sex with fruit and vegetables drawings. And the poor woman was kind of, at the 11th hour...
she did a beautiful job.
She did a beautiful job of the man with the watermelon thing. But
this is based on our Kennedy watermelon sketch, which opened the very first series on BBC One, which I think is still my favourite quickie we've ever done. And it involves this man sort of rather furtively up in a sort of attic. He's just got this massive watermelon on a table, and he goes over to this little curtained window and shuts the curtains. And he gets a knife out of the drawer, and he cuts a little hole in the watermelon. And then the camera tastefully pans up to his face, and you hear some flies going down, and a look of ecstasy as the man loses himself in the watermelon. Anyway, at that point, a voice from downstairs goes, Bill, they've just shot President Kennedy's just been assassinated. Where are you? What are you doing?
There's also a lot of recipes. Oh dear. Yeah. There's a lot of recipes in this book as well. Are you going to have a cooking show? I mean, should Jamie Oliver be worried?
This was one of your things, wasn't it, Zard? You wrote loads of these.
The Armstrong Miller specials.
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
So, see, I don't know. You'll find one of those. There's
Bleachy.
Bleachy.
Oh, yeah.
There's Bleachy. I'm sure you'll.
There's a lot of. We had a lot of fun.
Yeah, Ben's makeup tips.
My makeup tips.
Yep. Yeah. It's one for the ladies. I haven't tried them myself, but...
The Armstrong and Miller specials, which is something that
you've been going on about for years.
Hanging on about for ages. And one day I will find them in this...
This is restaurant specials?
Yes, they have a sort of series of menu things. Don't get me started. That's a fun... Sorry. You
we'll just talk amongst ourselves.
There's so much in this book. So much in there. It is impossible to find.
Well, actually, we're going. If anybody's got a question, we're going to open up to questions quite soon. So why not now? If anyone's got one, come on, you guys. Anyway,
okay, do you both have iPhones, or do you not have iPhones?
I do have. I'm afraid I've got sort of every Apple gadget practically ever. I'm sort of hopelessly.
Got a white one. Oh, I see. I thought you said, "Oh my God, it's so gay to have a white one." I was going to say, yeah. No,
yes, I have. I've got the latest.
Oh, you've got the proper one.
Oh, ouch! Look at that 3G. Stop it. Oh.
This is absolutely true. Before they came on, they actually went and did a bit of shopping.
Mm-hmm. I know, it's terrible, isn't it? Oh, dear. I was convinced we were going to get a discount.
Sadly not.
Yes,
here we go.
No, I found these things. The pre-theatre menu. It's got, things like the starters. Got jounce of kipper on Malmesbury sourdough with caper testes and parsley gros. Sorry, it's probably just me. Tipsy sea bream by a tamarind cash point with a sticky wine reduction and mint trainers. I won't read all of these.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah.
More questions?
Quince MILF in a cinnamon taxi with chili pear and plum gumbo. That sounds delicious. There we are. Sorry.
I wanted to say, obviously, in all three series, you've had some sort of recurring gag going on. And I always wonder, I think you managed to make them work very well in the fact that I think the best one you had was one of the Kill Them sketches in Series 2, when it was sort of like the Blue Peter-esque puppets, and you seriously did not see that one coming. But I was wondering, how do you manage to, or how do you try and make sure that they're not too predictable, and you can't really see where they're coming from? Do you have a trick or a way of making sure that they're not too recurring?
I wish we had a trick. It's hard, but the Kill Them ones, quite often, as you say, sometimes you never quite know. This time round, I think, with the bins out, and there's a fantastic the Crucible.
That's right.
One.
The sort of shaker kind of.
Yeah, that was a really good fun. We had quite a lot of drama ones, and there was a John Buchan type one where the guys just sort of. Yeah, we really went to town on those two really ridiculous production values, just so the guy could turn around and say, "Oh shit, forgot to put the bins out." But they were good fun. But yes, the Kill Them ones were kind of. It was hard to do that, hard to find a way that it wasn't. 'Cause it began to look quite obvious that it was going to be.
You're absolutely right, though. I mean, there isn't a trick, but it is definitely the case that you want to be surprised each time by it, but also to think. Also, you want that slight feeling like, oh God, yeah, of course I knew it would be one of those. That kind of feeling that it was also slightly predictable. That kind of, that little balancing act.
I think the trouble is, yes, you want to try and make, because it's always in a way you're selling. It's a bit of a Shaggy Dog story, isn't it? Where you want to make sure that you give people a run for their money. So you're slightly pulling the rug from under their feet. So you need to make sure that you've had a bit of fun on the journey anyway. But Kill Them, those were my favourites. I think my favourites of all of those was the one that was the Simon Cowell type. This what's the word you always call people like that?
Impresario?
Impresario. Oh, no, there's another word. It'll come to me in about 3 days. The people who are the big pop. Oh, come on, what's the word? Big. There's a
wanker.
That's the one. And he's signing up a new boy band, and he's got them into the office, and he's just saying, "Guys, you are fantastic." He's talking about their future. We've got a huge future here. I spoke to this guy in LA yesterday. He's mad keen to work with you, but we've got to work hard. And all this spiel, and then they walk out of the office. He just goes, "Kill them," which I thought that was
because it feels somehow right, doesn't it? Yeah.
What's your favourite bin one?
I think the one I enjoyed doing the most was because I kind of sort of was this Crucible kind of one. We had a kind of it was so ridiculously elaborate. We kind of all sort of it was a kind of imagine some kind of New England home, quite sparse, pilgrims, religious outcasts who've just made this new life for themselves. A kind of father figure living in tyranny over these daughters. One of them comes in and the news is broken to him by the doctor that she's pregnant, and he sort of grabs her by the hair and flies into this rage and is about to sort of perpetrate some awful revenge on her when I forgot to put the bins out. And sort of runs out. I just went sort of slightly too... There's a danger sometimes when you're doing... you're supposed to be funny, but you slip slightly into believing. I was enjoying it a little bit too much. Yeah, I was quite enjoying the idea. That was in an Arthur Miller play. Sort of... It's good. Yeah.
It's good.
When did you first realise that you wanted to be comedians as a living instead of a hobby?
It's a very, very good question. It's a
big
decision, that one, yeah. It's a big decision, though, exactly, because you think, am I going to actually make a living out of this? This is something that I don't just do? Because we started off doing a comedy club every Saturday night with some friends in Notting Hill in 93, I think we started doing that.
Yeah.
And then at that stage, it was very much a hobby. And the good thing is, and the bad thing is you quite early on, you get a lot of people saying very encouraging things. Producers will come up and say, I'm quite interested in talking and putting a show together. And they never do. You're never ever going to be in any of these shows. But they're very useful, these people, because they do make you start thinking along the lines of maybe doing something like this as a career. But I would say about 96, I think we went up to Edinburgh, did the festival for the second time, and we were nominated for the Perrier, which was then the big comedy award. That's the trouble with modern life, isn't it? Sponsors keep pulling out. Like the Mercury Award, it's still called the Mercury Award. There hasn't been a Mercury phone thing for years. But they've kept the name Mercury there.
And Perrier's gone now, isn't it? Then it was If, now it's something else.
If.com, and then it changed to something else. I mean, someone's going to have to step up and say, look, either sponsor this for 100 years or fuck off. Innocent Smoothie Awards.
Yes. Give us a call on the banana phone. Sorry.
I was just wondering how when you've got sketches going, obviously you do your own quality control about whether this sketch is working or not. But once it goes on to telly, how are you gauging whether the audience are liking these characters or not? So that the pilots go over series after series after series, but other ones you think, nah, maybe this isn't working for longer than, say, one.
Oh, that's a really good question. I think it's a very sort of imprecise. It's a very sort of imprecise thing when you look at it on paper, but it feels very tangible because you get the reaction of I think it's really the reaction of your friends, the reaction of people that sort of stop you in the street.
There's a prosaic answer, which is the number of hits on YouTube. Actually, is a pretty good. That's a pretty good indication of which are the ones that people.
But also the ones that you really like doing is a big thing as well. So the characters that you're really enjoying playing, sometimes even if it maybe they haven't kind of caught on like you hoped they might, you still sort of, I think sometimes as well, you enjoy playing them so much that you feel, well, eventually people will come round, and they usually or can often do.
There's a sort of funny sense though in your output. You wonder if there's one sketch that has been sort of chosen by whoever, and that becomes the sort of the queen bee. So that gets all the royal jelly and becomes sort of fat with everybody's approbation, and everyone just loves that particular sketch and these characters, and all the other characters are sort of, there's always going to be one little runt character somewhere that gets quietly ditched as you go from series to series.
Those are some of my favourites.
You think, I know exactly, but you do think if that sort of big queen bee sketch hadn't been there to nick all the oxygen, would other sketches have risen to the challenge, or was that only the ever decent sketch you were ever?
Have you got an example of a little runty sketch that didn't make it that you would have liked to get?
Well, I had a character called Jilted Jim, who I really enjoyed doing. I loved this character. I just loved doing this character, and the sketch. I think even with the heart of a proud parent, you couldn't ever claim that they romped home, I don't think, on the TV.
I have a theory, which is because if you have a comic character whose comic tick is that he's quite irritating, there's a danger that he actually can be quite irritating. And that's, I think of another famous...
Jilted Jim is the guy who turns up on somebody else's honeymoon because he's been jilted at the altar.
Yeah. Who'd already spent the money on the holiday.
Yeah, and hangs out with another honeymoon couple, making them feel incredibly guilty.
Yes, yeah.
But he does remind me... Suddenly springs to mind the other famous curly red-headed comic creation, Charlie Higson's office wag.
Yes, I loved that character.
See, I loved that character, but his strength was his irritation factor. I don't know, it's just a theory.
Any more questions? Yep.
When you were at school, did you do anything with comedy? Like, did you do any extracurricular stuff?
Yes, most definitely. I'm sure we both did. I used to write sketches with my friends and sort of just after school, just kind of perform them for nobody, really. We just used to sort of make up sketches. I seem to remember performing them on the roof of his shed. My friend Paul Sutcliffe, who came to one of our shows, actually. Paul Sutcliffe. I subsequently formed the band Achilli with. He played bass, in case you're interested. I also did drama club after school, and again used to make up lots of silly sketches. I loved doing that.
Yeah, we sort of used to have house entertainments and things like that at school. That was always a good thing. We just nick sketches from Not the 9 O'Clock News and Monty Python, or just things that we'd hoped that no one else had heard, and fob them off as our own. But it's a very useful process. Very useful.
Yeah.
Lady here.
What's your weirdest bit of fan mail?
Ooh, I got one of the weirdest things, sort of fan things, was on tour. Somebody came along on tour, and the fan mail was actually tattooed on her arm.
She had
had one of the sort of pilot's catchphrases tattooed. I think it was like. Wasn't it? It was on a...
Oh, yeah, and that was real. That wasn't pen.
It was real. And we thought it was pen to begin with.
Yeah, that was...
But it turned out it was real.
Someone else turned up and asked us to sign some bread, which was weird. That was quite strange.
They did.
I haven't signed any bakery products ever before.
Ooh, I hate to think what's happened to it.
Yeah.
And there's a question at the back there, right in the back row.
I've got a couple of questions. Firstly, have you brought your comedy to the States, and if so, how successful has it been? And secondly, what comedians actually have inspired you in the comedy you do?
We've been massively unsuccessful in getting our comedy on in America, actually.
There's a good reason for that. You have to have made a sufficient volume of shows in order to sell them to America. Then there's a second good reason for that. Nobody's wanted to buy our significant volume of output. So somewhere between those two stools, we fall.
Yes,
in fact, on either of those as well. On either of those stools.
In between those two stools. And the question about inspired by so many different people, and I think in particularly, I think for both of us, Monty Python's probably. Big thing,
yes.
Isn't it?
It's the sort of originator of everything somehow. Monty Python was the thing that we always used to. We just had records of Monty Python. Because obviously video back when I was little, only millionaires had videos. And so, we had sort of bootleg tapes of Monty Python copied from the albums. And I used to listen to those all the time, just again and again and again, and then perform them at school, pretend them they were my own.
But also, I find that you keep finding new people to be inspired by as well. I'm really huge fan of Simon Amstel, actually, at the moment. I think he's really doing such great, interesting stuff. And I love that American TV show, Arrested Development. And I love the Trip with Steve Coogan. I always loved Steve Coogan. And there's lots of people they're kind of, I think we're very sort of, very lucky in this country. There's a lot of really amazing people out there.
One of the joys of doing our show is you get to you work with all sorts of people that you want to bring in. So Tom Basden, for example, we had in this last series, who's just a phenomenal comedy mind, and Cowards that he's part of.
We loved the Cowards, didn't we? Absolutely. Yeah, I thought it was fantastic. I love the.
I think we've got time for
TV
one
version
last
as well.
question, and then I've got to let these guys go.
I was going to ask, where did you get the vocabulary for the RAF pilot sketch? It's quite street.
It's quite street.
Quite
street. Do you mean they don't look trendy enough?
Come now. Don't say we're not down with the Ute. Come now. Keeping an ear open and a pencil to hand. Again, Simon Blackwell has to take much of the credit for that. But and I think he sits on night buses.
Yeah.
How he ever remembers in the state he must be in.
I remember the first. I really like Kidulthood and Adulthood as well. The Noel Clarke movies. They're a great source of valuable information.
That's lovely. I'm afraid that's all we got time for. But Ben Miller and Alexander Armstrong, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening.